She had buried her emotions long before the winter tried to bury her alive. In the northern territories of Velmora, mercy was not a virtue. It was a death sentence. The cold did not forgive hesitation. The wilderness did not care about kindness. And the clans, especially hers, had no use for either. Kaelira Thorn was raised to survive. Nothing more, nothing else. She was not human, not entirely. Beneath her skin lived something older, sharper, and far more dangerous. A predator shaped by frost and hunger. A shadow that moved through blizzards without a sound. A hunter that did not fail. She was a frost-born shifter, bound to the spirit of the ice panther, silent, precise, lethal. In her clan, strength was the only language that mattered. Weakness was erased. Attachment was punished. Love was irrelevant. The pack came first, always. Kaelira believed that. She had to, because believing anything else meant questioning the only world she had ever known. Until the night the storm broke something open inside her. The wind howled like a living thing, not just noise, but force. It clawed through the trees, tore at the mountains, screamed across the frozen earth, as if trying to erase everything that dared exist in it. Snow didn't fall, it attacked. Kaelira moved through it like a ghost, low to the ground, controlled, focused. She had been tracking a stag for nearly 3 hours, a large one, strong, enough meat to feed the clan for days. Its trail was fresh. Blood marked the snow in thin streaks, a wounded animal, an easy kill, or it should have been. Kaelira slowed, then stopped. The tracks ended, not faded, not scattered, gone. Her eyes narrowed, her senses sharpened. This was wrong. The forest had gone silent, not the natural quiet of winter, but the kind of silence that meant something was watching. She crouched, pressing her fingers into the snow where the last print had been. Still cold, still real, but leading nowhere. A trick? Another predator? Something worse? She was about to turn back, and then the wind shifted. At first, she thought it was nothing, just another distortion in the storm, but then it came again. A sound, thin, weak, almost swallowed by the blizzard. A cry. Kaelira froze. No, that's not possible. No one survived out here. Not alone, not in this. And yet, there it was again. A desperate, broken sound that didn't belong to the wilderness. It didn't belong to a predator. It belonged to something fragile, something that should already be dead. Her body reacted before her thoughts could stop it. She moved, not toward safety, not toward the clan, toward the sound. Down the slope, through heavy drifts that reached her thighs, into a narrow ravine where the wind funneled into a violent roar. The smell hit her first. Death. Sharp, immediate, unmistakable. A body lay half buried in the snow, face down, motionless. Kaelira approached slowly, every instinct alert, every muscle ready. The woman's clothing caught her attention immediately. Wrong, too fine, too delicate. Not made for this land, not made for survival. This was someone from the south, from warmth, from comfort, from a world that did not understand what winter really was. Her hands were frozen in place, curved tightly around something beneath her, protecting it, even in death. The sound came again, weaker now, from under her body. Kaelira exhaled slowly. She already knew what she would find, and she already knew what it would cost her. Still, she knelt. Carefully, she pried the woman's frozen fingers apart. They resisted, cracked slightly, brittle from the cold. Beneath them, a bundle, wrapped in fabric far too rich for a place like this, threaded with silver patterns, marked with a crest she did not recognize, and inside, a child, tiny, fragile, alive, barely. Its face was twisted in effort, every breath a battle, every cry a refusal. It should have been silent by now, still, gone, but it wasn't. It was fighting. That was what struck her, not its weakness, its defiance. This child did not understand death, did not accept it, did not surrender to it. So it resisted, with everything it had. Kaylira felt something shift in her chest, a fracture, small but irreversible. "I hear you," she said quietly. The baby didn't stop crying. She lifted it, pressed it against her chest, wrapped it in her own fur-lined cloak. The warmth hit it immediately. The tiny body trembled, then clung. A small hand slipped free from the cloth, reaching, searching, grabbing at empty air. Kaylira hesitated for a fraction of a second, then extended her finger. The child latched onto it, tightly, too tightly for something so small. And just like that, the decision was made. Not spoken, not debated, final. She glanced at the stone beside her. A single pale flower had pushed through a crack in the frozen rock. Impossible, unnatural, alive. Kaylira exhaled slowly. "You'll be called Vale." The name felt right, like it had been waiting. But then, her body went still. Every instinct sharpened at once. She wasn't alone. She turned her head slowly toward the forest and saw them. Two glowing eyes, watching, unmoving, not human, not entirely animal, something else, something ancient, something dangerous enough to make even her instincts hesitate. The creature could have attacked, could have ended her life before she even moved. Instead, it stayed where it was, watching, learning, waiting. And for reasons she did not understand, it let her live. Kaylira smelled the settlement long before she saw it. Smoke, faint, mixed with old wood, worn leather, and the sharp edge of hunger. It used to feel like home. Now, it felt like judgment waiting. The outer torches flickered weakly against the storm as she approached. Snow gathered along the wooden walls, creeping upward like it wanted to swallow the place whole. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. The child stirred against her chest, a small sound, not quite a cry, not quite a breath, alive, still fighting. Kaylira tightened her grip around him. The gates opened before she could call out. They had been watching. They were always watching. Two hunters stood at the entrance. Both of them froze the moment their eyes dropped to the bundle in her arms, and in that single second, she knew this was already over. "Kaylira," the older one spoke first. His voice wasn't angry. It was worse. It was tired. "What did you do?" She didn't answer, didn't slow down, just walked past them. Inside, the settlement was quiet, too quiet. People noticed. Of course they did. They always noticed everything. Heads turned, conversations died mid-sentence. Eyes followed her, then dropped. No one spoke. They didn't need to. She felt it anyway. Disapproval, distance, condemnation. The healer saw her next. Arya. Old, sharp-eyed, nothing escaped her. The moment her gaze landed on the child, her entire face changed. Not surprise, not confusion, fear. "Kaylira," she whispered. "No." Too late. Kaylira didn't stop, didn't explain, didn't justify. She walked straight to her dwelling. He was already there. Darian, seated outside, knife in hand, sharpening it with slow, steady strokes. He didn't look up immediately. He didn't need to. "I smelled you coming," he said. Then his eyes lifted and landed on the child. The blade stopped moving. A long silence followed. "Come inside." No anger, no reaction. That was worse. Inside, the fire burned low, barely enough to keep the cold from settling into the bones. Kaylira stood in the center of the room, still holding the child. Darian leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching. Explain. So she did. Not everything, not the thoughts, not the feeling, just the facts, the storm, the body, the child. When she finished, silence filled the space again, heavy, pressing. "And you brought it here," Darian said. It wasn't a question. "He would have died." "Yes." The word landed like stone. "That's how it works." Kylira's jaw tightened. "He's an infant, and we are starving." Darian stepped closer. His gaze dropped to the child again, calculating, cold. "Take him back." "No." No hesitation, no doubt. Darian's eyes sharpened. "You don't get to say no to reality. I'm not taking him back. He will die here. Not if I keep him alive." "With what?" Darian snapped. "With air? With hope?" The child made a small sound. Both of them froze. It wasn't crying. It was curiosity, a soft, uncertain noise, as if the world was something new, something worth noticing. Darian looked at it for a long moment, then exhaled slowly. "Leave him outside," he said. "You don't have to watch." Kylira went completely still. Slowly, she turned her head toward him. "Touch him," she said quietly, "and I will break your hands." Silence. Real silence. The kind that comes before something ends. Darian studied her, really studied her, and for the first time, he understood. She wasn't hesitating. She had already chosen. "Then you're already gone," he said. The summons came within the hour. The central fire burned high, brighter than usual, too bright. 30 figures stood in a circle around it. Her pack, her family, or what used to be. Kylira stepped forward, the child still in her arms. No one looked at her. Not one. The Alpha stood at the front, Ravik, massive, unyielding. His gaze locked onto her, then dropped to the child. Something flickered in his expression, gone just as quickly. "You know why you're here." "Yes." "Then I won't waste words." His voice was calm, controlled, which made it worse. "Leave the child with the healer." Kylira didn't move. "He'll be taken care of." "You mean abandoned?" A ripple moved through the crowd. Ravik's eyes hardened. "I mean what needs to be done." "Then say it," she said. "Say you want him dead." Silence fell again. He didn't answer, didn't need to. "Choose," he said instead. One word, nothing more. Kylira looked around the circle. Faces she had fought beside, bled beside, starved beside. None of them met her eyes, not even Darian. The bond in her chest tightened, a deep instinctive connection, pack, belonging, identity, everything she had ever known, and all of it balanced against something small, fragile, breathing softly against her chest. She looked down at the child, at the tiny hand still wrapped around her finger, and something inside her broke completely. "If this is what we are," she said quietly, "then I refuse to be it." She lifted her head. "I'm leaving." No one tried to stop her. No one spoke. They simply stepped aside, making a path, as if she were already gone. She packed in silence, furs, weapons, dried meat, fire tools, everything she would need to survive alone. Darian stood in the doorway, watching. "You'll die out there." "Maybe." "You could stay." She paused. For a moment, just a moment, it almost sounded like something else. Regret. "Come with me," she said. Not a plea, just truth. He shook his head. "I won't die for something that isn't mine." Kylira nodded once. "I suppose it never was real, just convenient." Then she walked past him, out into the storm. The gates closed behind her. The sound echoed, final, absolute. And just like that, she was alone. The cold hit differently when there was no pack. Before, it had been something shared, a burden divided across bodies, across warmth, across presence. Now, it was absolute. Kalira stepped beyond the gates and felt it immediately. The bond snapped. Not physically, not visibly, but she felt it. A tearing sensation deep in her chest. Something that had always been there, suddenly gone. Silence rushed in to replace it. Not the silence of the forest, the silence of being alone, truly alone. The kind no shifter was ever meant to feel. For a moment, her steps faltered. The storm swallowed the settlement behind her, and just like that, there was no going back. The child shifted in her arms, a small movement, a reminder, alive, needing her. That was enough. Kalira adjusted her grip and kept walking. She walked through the night because stopping meant freezing, because hesitation meant death, because there was no one coming to help her now. The storm eased only slightly by dawn. Light filtered through heavy clouds, gray, cold, unforgiving. She found shelter where she could, a rock formation, jagged and uneven, but angled just enough to block the wind. It would have to be enough. She moved quickly. Pine branches gathered, packed tight against the stone. Cloth stretched overhead, secured with frozen hands that barely obeyed her. Then, inside. She crawled into the narrow space, pulled every fur she had over both of them. For a moment, there was stillness. Then, the child cried. Not weak this time, angry, demanding, alive in a way that refused to be ignored. Kalira closed her eyes. She had been avoiding this, but now there was no avoiding it. The child needed milk, and she had none. She shifted him carefully, pressed him closer. "Come on," she muttered under her breath. "Take something, anything." The child tried, determined, focused, refusing to accept failure, just like before. Kalira clenched her jaw. Her body resisted. This wasn't something she had ever needed, ever prepared for, ever learned. Nothing happened. The child grew frustrated, then tired, then quiet. Too quiet. He fell asleep. Kalira stared down at him. She couldn't tell if he had gotten anything at all, or if he had simply run out of strength. That uncertainty was worse than anything. The temperature dropped again that night, faster, sharper. The shelter wasn't enough. The wind found its way through cracks, through seams, through everything. The child woke, and this time he didn't stop crying. Not anger, pain, cold. Kalira's heart pounded. Think, move, now! She didn't hesitate. She laid him down in the center of the furs, wrapped him in everything she had. Then she stripped, shifted. The transformation was immediate. Bone, muscle, fur. The ice panther emerged, massive, silent, heat radiating from her body like a living furnace. She curled around him, a crescent of warmth, shielding him from everything. The crying stopped, instantly. The small body pressed into her fur, seeking, trusting, belonging. Kalira stilled. Something deep inside her recognized the feeling, not as a hunter, not as a predator, but as something else, something she had never allowed herself to be. The child breathed, soft, even, safe. And for the first time since she left, Kalira allowed her eyes to close. By the third morning, something changed. It was subtle, but unmistakable. Her body responded, slowly, reluctantly, but it did. The child fed and did not cry afterward. Kalira sat there for a long time, holding him, feeling the fragile rhythm of his breathing. "We're going to live," she said quietly. Not hope, not wish, a decision. On the fourth day, she found it, an abandoned structure, old, worn, half consumed by the forest, but standing, barely. A cabin. It sat in a shallow valley, protected by three sides by dense trees, near a frozen stream, defensible, hidden, enough. Kalira stepped inside. Cold ash, rotting wood, the faint scent of something long gone, but still better than nothing. "This will do," she said, and then she began. Repair, rebuild, reclaim, piece by piece, branches, bark, snow packed tight into cracks. Hours turned into days. The fire never went out, not once. Because if it did, they wouldn't have hours, they would have minutes. She woke multiple times each night, fed the flames, checked the child, listened to the silence. The feeding stabilized, her body adapted, slowly, painfully, but enough. And she spoke to him, not softly, not gently, but honestly. "Track," she said one morning, pointing to marks in the snow outside. "Fox." A pause. "No." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Wolf." She looked down at him. "You'll learn." Another day, by the fire. "Your mother ran until she couldn't any more." A quiet moment. "I won't waste what she gave you." Weeks passed. The cabin changed, stronger, warmer, alive again. And so did he. Dark hair thickened, eyes sharpened, movement became deliberate, aware, present. When she spoke, he listened. When she moved, he followed. And when she looked at him, he trusted, completely. One evening, Kalira sat outside the cabin. The sky burned orange behind the trees, fading slowly into deep purple. The world felt still, for once. The child sat in her lap, small hands grabbing at everything, at her face, at her hair, at the air itself. She exhaled slowly. "We're going to be fine." The child grabbed her nose and smiled. What she didn't see was the movement in the trees. What she didn't hear was the silent step in the snow. And what she didn't yet understand was that they had never been alone. The first sign came at dawn. Kalira opened the cabin door and froze. A deer lay in the snow, fresh, steam still rising from the body, blood dark and wet against white frost. Its throat had been torn open cleanly, precise, efficient, not the work of a desperate predator, the work of something that knew exactly what it was doing. Kalira didn't move. Her hand dropped slowly to her knife. Her eyes scanned the tree line. Nothing. No movement. No sound. But the silence was wrong. Too complete. The kind of silence that meant something had been here recently, watching. She stepped forward slowly. The deer hadn't been dragged. It had been placed, deliberately, for her. Kalira crouched beside it, her fingers pressed lightly against the fur, still warm. Her jaw tightened. "You're close," she muttered. No answer. Of course not, but she felt it anyway. That presence, somewhere beyond the trees. She didn't waste it, couldn't afford to. The meat was cleaned, prepared, stored, every part used. But that didn't change the truth. It hadn't been her hunt, and that mattered. The next morning, there was a hare, small, clean, placed exactly where the deer had been. The morning after, a fox, then another, always fresh, always perfect, always waiting. Kalira stopped questioning it, not because she understood, but because she didn't need to anymore. The pattern was clear. It wasn't random. It wasn't instinct. It was intention. Every morning before sunrise, she stood outside the cabin, watching the forest, feeling him, because now she knew it was him, the wolf. At first, she stayed armed, always, knife ready, body prepared, mind alert. But days passed, then more, and nothing happened. No attack, no confrontation, only presence and the gifts. A week later, she found tracks, not passing through, circling, a wide arc around the valley. She crouched beside them, steadied them, slow, measured, consistent, a full circle every night. He wasn't hunting her. He was guarding. Kalira stayed there longer than she should have, staring at the prints, trying to understand something that didn't make sense. "How long?" she asked quietly. The forest didn't answer, but she already knew. Long enough. That night, she didn't sleep. Not fully. She lay beside Vale, eyes half open, listening, and beneath the crackle of fire, beneath the wind, she felt it. Him, out there, moving, silent, constant. The connection hadn't faded. If anything, it had grown stronger, clearer, sharper, like a thread pulled tight between them. She didn't understand it, didn't trust it, but she couldn't ignore it either. She was being hunted, but not as prey, something else. And the most dangerous part was how her body responded to that realization. Not fear, not panic, recognition. Vale was the first to notice. Of course he was. He always noticed everything. It happened one morning when Kalira made a mistake, a small one. She turned her back, just for a moment, to feed the fire. 30 seconds, no more. When she turned back, the cabin door was open, and Vale was gone. Kalira didn't think, didn't breathe, didn't hesitate. She moved, outside, into the clearing, and then she stopped. Vale sat in the snow, in the middle of the clearing, perfectly still, facing the wolf. It stood at the edge of the trees, massive, silent, watching. Kalira's hand found her knife instantly, her body tensed, ready to strike, to kill, to protect. But she didn't move, because Vale didn't move. He looked up at the creature, studied it, head tilted slightly. Then he smiled, a full, bright, unafraid smile, and reached out both hands. "Ah!" The sound echoed softly in the clearing, simple, certain, like a command. The wolf froze, completely, its ears lowered slightly, not in aggression, in something else. Its body relaxed, just enough, the tension unwinding, slowly, very slowly. It lowered its head until its nose was level with Vale's hands. It inhaled, deep, shaking, and then a sound escaped it, low, broken, not a growl, not a threat, a whimper, the sound of something that had forgotten what it meant to not be alone. Vale laughed, soft, bright, reaching forward, touching its nose, grabbing its fur, pulling slightly, curious, fearless. The wolf didn't move, didn't resist, didn't react. It allowed it. Kalira lowered her knife, slowly, carefully, her heart still pounding, but not from fear anymore. The wolf's eyes lifted, met hers, and in that moment, she understood something deep, instinctive, certain. "You won't hurt him," she said quietly. Not a guess, a fact. She stepped forward, closing the distance, every movement controlled, measured. Standing beside Vale, beside the wolf, she inhaled deeply, past the surface scent, past the blood, past the wilderness, deeper, to the root. Then she inhaled Vale's scent and froze. It was the same, not similar, not close, identical. Kalira's breath caught, her eyes moved from the wolf to the child, green eyes, the same shade, the same depth, the same fire, and suddenly everything made sense. The timing, the presence, the protection, the refusal to leave. "You..." She couldn't finish the sentence, didn't need to, because at that exact moment, Vale shifted, not controlled, not intentional, instinct, pure, immediate. 1 second, a child, the next, A tiny wolf pup, black, small enough to fit in her hands. The wolf's eyes widened, shock, recognition, something deeper breaking through the madness. It made that sound again, but this time it wasn't pain. It was relief. The pup stumbled forward toward the wolf and collided with its nose, rolled, got back up, and did it again. The wolf responded carefully, so carefully, like the entire world depended on not hurting something fragile. It nudged him gently, let him climb, let him fall, stayed perfectly still, and then it licked him. One slow, careful, complete motion. Kalira sank slowly to the ground, the realization hitting her fully now. "You're his father." The wolf didn't understand the words, but something inside him did, because he stayed, closer now, not in the trees, not in the shadows, with them. And for the first time, Kalira didn't feel hunted. She felt chosen. Time did not heal him. Not completely, but it softened the edges. The beast no longer stayed in the trees. He came closer, every night, a little more, until one evening, he didn't leave at all. Kalira sat outside the cabin, Vale asleep inside. The fire burned low, casting slow, breathing shadows across the snow. He stood beside her, not watching, not hunting, staying. For a long time, neither of them moved. Then she spoke. "I know you can hear me." Silence, but not empty. "I don't know your name. I don't know who you were." A pause. "But I know what you are now." Slowly, carefully, she reached out, her hand pressed against his side. Warm, always warm. "You're not lost." His body tensed for a fraction of a second, then eased. The green in his eyes flickered, not gone, but clearer. That was enough. Kalira exhaled slowly. Then she made a choice. She leaned back slightly, tilted her head, and bared her throat, completely. No defense, no hesitation. Trust. The wolf stepped forward, massive, overwhelming, but careful. His breath brushed against her skin, hot against the cold air. He inhaled, slow, deep, recognizing. Then he bit, sharp, clean. Pain flashed, then disappeared, and something else took its place. A bond. Not formed, revealed. It crashed through her like light breaking into darkness. Suddenly, she felt him. Not just his presence, everything. The grief, endless, crushing. The rage, directionless, violent. The emptiness, so deep it had swallowed his name. And beneath all of it, something untouched. A father's instinct, a protector, a bond that had never broken, only lost its voice. Her breath caught. "You found your way back," she whispered. The wolf didn't understand the words, but through the bond, he understood her. Weeks passed, and he changed, not fully, not all at once, but slowly. Some mornings, he was human, barely, sitting beside the fire, silent, confused. Other mornings, he was the wolf again, but no longer wild, no longer alone. Then, they came. The forest warned her before she saw them. Metal, smoke, too many footsteps. Kalira stood before the cabin, knife in hand, veil behind her, the wolf beside her. Not hiding, waiting. Dozens of soldiers stepped into the clearing, disciplined, armed, and behind them, one man. He didn't wear armor. He didn't need to. Authority followed him like gravity. His eyes, green, the same green. He looked at the wolf, and something in his expression broke. "So it's true. he said quietly. Kalira didn't lower her weapon. Take one more step, and you don't leave this forest. The man didn't move. His gaze shifted to Vale, and then back to the wolf. My brother, he said. Silence fell, heavy, unavoidable. He was never meant to become this, the man continued. They destroyed everything he was. Kalira's grip tightened. He's not yours anymore. The man met her eyes. No, he said quietly. He isn't. A long pause. Then he lowered his head slightly. Not submission, respect. You kept him alive. You brought him back. His voice softened. And the child. His eyes moved to Vale again. That is his son. Not a question, a realization. Everything clicked into place. The connection, the scent, the instinct. Kalira exhaled slowly. Yes. The man closed his eyes briefly. Then the bloodline didn't end. The soldiers shifted behind him, waiting, but he raised a hand, stopped them, then looked back at her. I won't take them from you. Kalira didn't move, didn't trust it, not yet. He belongs with you now, he said. Both of them do. A pause, then he lowered his head slightly. But the world will come looking. His gaze hardened slightly. And next time, it won't be me. He turned, the soldiers followed, and just like that, they were gone. Silence returned. Real silence, not tension. Peace. That night, Kalira sat by the fire, Vale asleep beside her. The man, not the beast, sat across from her. Human. For real. For the first time. He looked at his hands, like they didn't belong to him. I don't remember everything, he said, his voice rough, unused. But I remember enough. He looked up, at her, at the child, at the life that had been built without him. You didn't have to save me. Kalira shook her head slightly. I didn't. A small silence. Then, I chose to. Something shifted in his expression, not confusion, understanding. Vale stirred, woke, looked between them, then smiled, simple, certain, like nothing in the world had ever been broken. Seasons passed, the snow melted, the forest breathed again, and the cabin was no longer just shelter, it was home. He never fully became who he was before, but he didn't need to, because what he became was enough. For her, for Vale, for the life they built. One morning, he went still. His hand rested gently against her stomach. There's another, he said quietly. Kalira looked at him, no fear, no doubt, only something steady, something certain. Yeah, she said. He exhaled slowly. Through the bond, she felt it, not confusion, not pain, joy, deep, overwhelming, unbreakable. That night, he pulled her closer, held her like something real, something chosen. I love you, he said. The first words he chose to remember, the first words he chose to keep. Kalira smiled against him. Outside, the forest stood quiet, no longer watching, no longer waiting, just there. Vale slept peacefully, their future no longer uncertain. She had walked away from everything, into cold, into darkness, carrying nothing but a choice. And somehow, that had been enough.